Stay tuned for Wrestling with Computers. Go get yourself a piece of paper and a pen, because we're off to the world of technology, and you're going to want to take notes. Hello, and welcome to Wrestling with Computers, a show that I hope simplifies the complexities of computers, networking, servers, and technology in general. I'm Wrestling Brewster from Brewster PC Solutions, and today, for our first show, we're going to talk about buying a new computer. It's difficult to sift through all the choices to get exactly what you really need with all of the complexities and everything that is being shot at you from all the stores and all the advertisements. You need to find out exactly what you need. The first thing you need to do is you need to decide what you're going to use your computer for. If you're going to be using it for a business, it's going to be different than if you're going to be using it for home or a child's computer, or even if you're going to be using it for high-end things. So once you decide what of those things you're going to be using it for, you can move on to decide more things. First thing you want to decide is if you want something like a laptop or a desktop. A desktop computer and a laptop computer are only different in size and in expense. A lot of people will not get a desktop because they think they need more room. With the screens that they have today, the screens are smaller so that you can put this on your desk. And the desktops are actually going to be underneath the desk. They're no longer on the desk. So that you can have all that space that's going to be taken up with the screen, not that whole big box. Just a quick note about where your placement is of your desktop. Now that it's going underneath the desk, you really need to consider the space. You don't want it enclosed because the fan in a computer is like a radiator. It takes the air in, circulates it, and keeps it cool that way. So there's a lot of vents and other things on the computer that when they get clogged will heat up the computer. And once that heat gets into the computer and the computer gets heated, what happens is that the CPU and the whole computer will start to crash because heat is really bad for the computer. So you want to have that computer in a space that's well ventilated. So that you want it off the ground so the duff and the dander from the cat and the dog don't get clogging those vents. One of the best things that you can do is either get a tray or just two pieces of 2x4 on the ground, lifting it off the ground. One of the best investments that you can get for a laptop is called a laptop fan. You can get these at places like Staples or Best Buy, and they're really cheap. They're about $30, and you can get one that sits on your lap or like this one that sits on the desk. This will extend the life of your computer by cooling that computer. The fans in the laptop are a little smaller than the fans on the desktop, so it takes a little more for that fan to work. So again, you want to make sure that that fan is working and not clogged. Once you've decided about whether you want a laptop or a desktop, you want to start to think about what you're going to be using this for. If you are going to be using it for high-end graphics or things, you need those things in mind when you're buying these things. Laptops come in a variety of sizes. They're all about the screen size. So when you're looking at a laptop, the screen size has to do with this area here. So it's called diagonal, is how they're measured. A 13-inch diagonal monitor is measured this way. So you want to start thinking about how much weight and how much size you're going to be using on your laptops. Laptops usually range from about 13 inches to about 20 inches. Now the 13 inches below, the netbooks and those computers are really hard to see. They're also very limited in the amount of stuff you can do. They're great because they're small, but they're really not as versatile as some of your larger computers. So you want to look at the mid-range, which is about 14 to 15 inches. So once you get that mid-range down, it's all about durability and movability. If you're going to be on the road all the time, you don't want to be lugging a 17-inch screen around because it's much heavier. And once you get up to the 17-inch monitors on a laptop, you get to the point where you really have to ask yourself if you need that laptop or if you really need a desktop. Next, what you want to do is you want to make it fast and reliable. One of the inherent problems with purchasing a new computer is that it's like buying a car. As soon as you drive it off the lot, it's outdated. Technology is moving at such a fast rate, it's impossible to keep up with it. That's why it's imperative to get the best technology that you can afford when you buy your computer. So you want to go in and you want to make sure that it's not playing catch up within a year. I have a lot of clients who call and say, well, I bought this brand new computer, and when it's a year old, it starts to slow down. Well, the technology of tomorrow is going to need much more RAM and speed than you have today. My best analogy about space and speed, because I get a lot of clients who call me and they're a little confused about the fact that they have a large hard drive, but their computer is still slow. Well, the best analogy I have is if you think about it as a pickup truck. And in the pickup truck analogy, if you think of it as the pickup truck, the bed of the pickup truck is your hard drive, and the engine is your RAM, which is random access memory. If you think of it that way, you can hold a lot of stuff with a big bed, but if you have a small engine, you can't go very fast. So if you have a computer with a large hard drive, but not a lot of RAM, random access memory, you're not going to go very fast. So you can hold a lot of data, but you can't go very fast. So when you buy that new computer, you want to make sure that you have the most RAM that you can afford. RAM is measured in gigabytes, which is basically 124 megabytes. The bare minimum for today's standards is 2 gigabytes of RAM. Most of your new operating systems take 2 gigabytes of RAM to run. So once that processor and everything else is working, and that RAM is working, and you only have 2 gigs of RAM, that operating system is going to take all that RAM and use it. So that's a bare minimum. 3 gigabytes or more is the best for the newest operating system. You want to get the most RAM that you can afford when you get your new computer. Let's talk a little bit more about the new operating system, which is Windows 7. Windows 7 is the newest operating system that is taking over for Vista, which was a catastrophe. Windows 7 is a much better operating system and is running much more stable. It's a lot better than some of the old operating system, but it does take a lot of RAM to run. So you want to make sure that you have the most RAM that you can possibly get. The other thing that you want to make sure you have is a good processor. The processor, or CPU, is the inside of the computer. It's like the brain. The RAM is used at random, that's why it's random access memory, from the CPU. The CPU is like the brain of your computer. Most of the new processors out there are 2.0 gigahertz, which is GHz, gigahertz. And that is the speed of your processor. Some of the best processors out there are the i3, the i7, and the i5. The i3 is just like the basic processor that you can get to run your system. The i7 is the top processor. So you want to be somewhere, you want to get one of these i3s or i7 processors, some of the best out there. You're always thinking about, when you're buying a new computer, what it's going to be in 2 or 3 years. So if you get the best processor now, you won't be slowing down in the future. Getting back to the operating system, it comes in a myriad of options, all the way from Home to Ultimate. Home being the basic operating system, which if you're doing everyday tasks, just going on the internet and getting email, that's fine. Ultimate has all the little things that you need to run an operating system at a much higher rate. So you're using all of the operating system. It's more expensive to get the Ultimate, but the Home has certain limitations. For example, the Home you can't get on a domain. It's harder to network the Home operating system of Windows 7. And the Ultimate is much more expensive, but you can do all of the things that you want to do with that. So you have to look at that when you're buying a new computer. One of the new things that's coming out now is the 64-bit operating system. Basically, the term 64-bit and 32-bit, which is the old one, has to do with the way the computer's processor, the CPU, handles information. The 64-bit version of Windows handles large amount of random access memory, your RAM, more effectively than the 32-bit system. Now, the new computers are being sold with 64-bit operating system because it can handle more than 4 gigabytes of RAM. Remember, we talked about getting the most RAM that you could possibly get. Windows 7 Home Basic can handle 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 7 Ultimate can handle up to 192 gigabytes of RAM. So basically, this can go faster, it can process faster. If you're doing a lot of high-end things like graphics, you're going to need some more RAM. So you want to look at that when you're looking at your new computer. The problem with a 64-bit operating system is that you can't operate all of your software that you have now on that operating system. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to find out if the software that you're using now is compatible with the 64-bit operating system. One of the things about software that you should know is software is usually a one-install thing. Once you install it on one computer, unless you've got a multi-install license, you're not supposed to install it in another system. So once you have it in that one system, you're going to have to purchase new software once you get to the new computer. You also need to consider your peripherals like your printers and stuff like that. A lot of printers that are older won't work with your new 64-bit operating system. They also will have problems with Windows 7. So the best thing to do is before you go and buy that new computer is to make sure that your old printer is or is not going to work, because you might have to get a new printer as well. So the best way to do this is check out the manufacturer's website or call someone like Brewster PC Solutions to check it out for you. All right, now we've got all the stuff we talk about speed. Now let's talk a little bit about the amount of hard drive space you need. Most of your new computers are coming with 250 to 350 gigabytes of hard drive space, which is plenty for the average user. If you store a lot on your hard drive, you may want to look to the 500 gig or up to the terabyte, which is 1,000 gigabytes. If you get to that point where you're using that much data or storing that much data on your computer, you really should consider not storing that on your hard drive of your computer, because storing a large amount of data on the same hard drive as the operating system can cause some problems. It's a cheap and efficient way to get out of this by using something like an external hard drive or a secondary internal hard drive. This can store all that heavy data away from the operating system. So the operating system has plenty of space to do what it needs, get updates and do all the things that an operating system does. So you really want to look at that when you're buying a new computer, is how much data do you have right now? How much are you using it? And what are you using it for? The next thing we should talk about is the extra ports and the graphics cards and extension cards like that. A lot of computers now are coming with a whole bunch of gadgets. They're coming with SD readers, which will let you read the card from a camera on your computer. So you want to look at what you use now. If, for example, you're using something high-end like a CAD program for architects or a high-end graphics program, you should really look into a higher-end graphics card, which will be a little more expensive, but you'll run into problems if you're using CAD or if you're using a high-end graphics card, if you don't have the graphics card with the speed to keep up with what's going on. Video cards basically add functions such as accelerated rendering of 3D scenes, TV output, or the ability to connect multiple monitors. So you need to know what you're getting into once you get a computer. So you need to know what you're using that computer for. The high end, you do want to look at, if you want dual monitors, the best time to get a second monitor card or graphics card is when you buy the computer instead of having to add it later. So you want to look at that. You want to make sure that if you want dual monitors, that you either get a two monitor cards, graphic cards, or a dual monitor card. So once you get all that set, you need to look at the network card. Now this network card is in the back of the computer and connects you to the outside world. Everything on the outside world is connected through that. That's how you get your internet. Now, in the old days, the highest speed you could get was called 10/100, which gave you 100 megabits of speed. Nowadays, what you want to do is you want to get a gigabit network card, or NIC card, which is signified by 10/100/1000, because that's 1,000 megabits. So that's a gigabit. So you want to make sure that your new computer has the highest speed possible so that you can get through the network as quickly as possible. Again, we're always looking to get a new computer that's going to last for a long time. So if we get the highest speed in the RAM and the best amount of memory in the, best hard drive space and the highest speed on our internet, we're going to have a computer that's going to last longer, that's going to keep up with that technology. Wireless cards, or wireless network cards, let you move the computer throughout your house without having to be connected to that tube through the NIC card. The wireless cards of today are obviously faster than the old cards. What you want to make sure is that you get the highest speed that you can possibly get. The new wireless cards are called Wireless N, which is signified by 802.11b/G/N. The B, G, and N just signifies the upgrade in speed and the biggest, newest wireless that you can connect to. Most of your laptops are going to have wireless cards installed. Your desktop usually doesn't come with that installed, but you can get one installed if you want to when you're buying it. That's the best time to get all these peripherals, is when you need them, not when you need them later. To get them installed when you get them, not when you are later on. It's better to have them installed. Other peripherals or add-ons like DVD burners and wireless